Servus, and welcome back to another episode of the Pro Hockey Pod, episode 25. Before we get started with this week's guest, just want to let you guys know, give us a follow on Instagram at Pro Hockey Pod as well. These interviews are also on YouTube in case any of you want to watch them live, see our interactions instead of just listening through it through your headphones. Pro Hockey Pod as well on YouTube. This week, I mean, what can I say about this guy? 20 years professional hockey, living in Germany now, founder of Robinson Athletics. This guy has played in a lot of great leagues over his time, and now is developing a lot of the players in Germany, working in Leipzig. Happy to have on a former Belleville Bull, even though I'm a diehard Pete's fan. I'll accept it this week. Welcome to the podcast, Nathan Robinson.
Thanks for having me here. I appreciate it, and I love what you're doing there with that. It's doing a good job. It's awesome.
So, like always, we always go back to the start. I believe you were born in Scarborough, Ontario, so in the GTA area.
Yep.
Is that where you first learned to play hockey and fall in love with the game?
Actually, here's the guy. I was born there, and then my parents moved to Kingston, Ontario, 2 hours down the highway, the 401, and their jobs moved, and they wanted me bring me up in a better area, a better community, and safer for families to be raised and everything too. So that's where I began to pick up hockey, Kingston, Ontario.
And how was the minor hockey structured back then? Like, was it similar to how it is now with like AAA, AA, single A in Kingston area?
Yeah, it was exactly. It was double A, single A, double A, triple A, or you can go house league, which in Germany you have like hobby or then it's like Nachwuchs and this. But yeah, I started a house league. I was like, they don't have like Timbits. They do have enough for kids, where it's more like U7 or U9 and all that stuff, under sevens. And then it was like I was starting house league with like, that was what, started skating. I was 2 or 3. You see the video on Instagram, I was 2 or 3 years old, and it was over the kids that were like 6, 7 years old, and it was just like kind of everybody into a fishbowl.
And what drew you to hockey? Because like everyone obviously has their own thing, like whether it's like a family member or just, in Canada, it's obviously one of the top sports there. Like, what was your draw to it?
Yeah. Okay. My father, I just remember him coming in from hockey, from Beers League, and throw his equipment down on the ground. And then on a Saturday, he had like Saturday afternoon games or tournaments, and you come in and turn the TV on. I'd be in the kitchen with my mom. He had a little net there for me, and I'd shoot with my mom. My mom is my goalie, and my dad would come in, put his shit down, go on the couch, put hockey net in Canada. So typical, and it's still true. That's the way it was when he was in Canada. Um, put on the Leafs were playing like the Bruins or whatever, and hockey net in Canada. Don Cherry, come on, and I'd sit on his lap and he watch the games with him, and he'd grab his beer, and it's mostly Canadian. And just I can even still smell like the mostly Canadian and the stinky hockey equipment in the living room. I live in a small flat, and I would get into his equipment and pick up his skates, and I was just like, wow, these are so big and cool, and try his helmet on, and I got into it that way. I just was curious, and he knew that.
And who you said you obviously watch Hockey Night in Canada together with your dad, like that's one of your
Yeah,
childhood memories. So what team did you follow, or maybe some
yeah,
players that you really liked and kind of wanted to shape your game after?
yeah. Well, at that time in the early '80s, well, when I started watching it, I was, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you don't remember too much, but you just remember, okay, the Leafs, obviously, your Ontario team, right? You're from Peterborough, so the Leafs, and I don't know if you followed them in NHL, who your favorite NHL team was, but I mean, the Leafs were Ontario, the team, um, and I remember watching like Gary Lehman, Wendell Clark. Like these guys are going way back, and for these young kids watching this podcast, I mean, they wouldn't have any idea who those players are. But Hall of Famers like Doug Gilmore, was later on in the '90s. But I think like these are the players that I starting as a young boy watching when the Leafs weren't doing so well, actually. And but later on, we get into that more later, but my development was definitely I molded myself with the skating as Pavel Bure was my it's by full build. He was like watching Pavel Bure was how he skated. I try to emulate him.
The Russian Rocket. I was gonna say that actually, because obviously I
Yeah,
remember you from your
yeah.
Belleville days, and you were very known for your skating ability. So I definitely
Yeah.
think that's a good comparison. Before we jump to
Thank
Belleville,
you.
I want to talk about you are one of those rare guys that made the jump to tier two junior, I would say, at a young age. I believe you were 16 years old when you made the jump and ended
Yeah,
up playing for the Kingston Voyagers. Like, how
yeah.
was that experience for you? How was that adjustment? You being 16, playing with guys who are up to ages 21.
You know what? Looking at actually, I was 14. My first year was 14. Looking back on that, I don't know how I'm looking at 14-year-olds now. And in skating with them and even in the streets and everything, I'm just like, I don't know how I did it, to be honest. I guess, wow, things have changed and the human being has changed, development's changed. Uh, I remember my first year going to camp with the Kingston Voyagers, they're called. And the year before, I was only in AAA. So um, it was starting my first year of high school, 14. And I remember walking into the dressing room for camp, and everyone had beards. And there were men at the time, 18, 20 years old, 21. To a 14-year-old, you're a man, you know? And I remember walking in, I'm just like, oh my God, why am I here? Like, what's going on right now? Why am I? Uh, I always thought to myself, I think I'm here for a reason, and my father wouldn't put me in too much danger if he didn't believe what I could do, and also the coaching staff obviously had expectation of me. So I just skated my ass off, and I just hope for the best, to be honest. And um, I think I was always a strong like always a strong kid, and pretty early developed good muscle bound, and my dad really taught me how to a lot of my training and everything like that. He trained me a lot, and I played a lot of sports, so I don't know, I adapted pretty quick to that game, and my skating was what got me through it, like, really. And yeah.
That's crazy though. I didn't
Yeah,
obviously
yeah,
elite
yeah.
prospects only has so much, but like 14 years old to make that jump
I
is
know
insane.
it's nuts, man. I don't know how I mean, I think skating was a big key for me because I was undersized in 1996, 97. I mean, like, guys are still using wooden sticks. There was no rules with anything. Like, I was getting, if they caught me, then they would try to throw me, I mean, hit me, and they wouldn't catch me. I was like pretty quick on my skates, and I was remember wearing those white Nike skates that Fedorov had, those kind of skates, and I was flooding around with those. I was a target, and but skating from an early age, and the way I was learned how to skate, and the way I did power skating and everything, that was definitely how I survived. Other than that, if I couldn't skate at being 5'7", five at the time, 100 or what in German it's 150, 157, 160 centimeter or something
Hmm.
like that, and maybe I was like 60 kilo. So, but I didn't care. I just wanted to play the NHL one day. So
Well, especially back then, like it was different type of hockey where your speed probably, like you kind of just hinted at, like saved you and allowed you to be able to make that jump. Because if you weren't fast, you were small and would have been getting manhandled. Basically, is a light way
oh,
to say
bro,
it.
unbelievable. I remember my first tier two. I'll tell you a quick story with this tier the story. Um, my first game as in tier two, we're playing the Trenton Sting. They're like the rivalries. It's just like um Zell playing Bayreuth or something, a derby match, Leipzig versus Halle, Berlin versus Mannheim. Okay, so tier two, we played this Trenton Sting. They had the worst uniforms, terrible unis. It was like Sting, a bumblebee. So it was like everything was like yellow and black stripes, white. And guys were farmers. Like, these are Bowen farmer guys, like thick, and most of them could not skate at all. They just killers, like Slapshot, the movie. And I remember my first shift coming out, And first of all, I had equipment that was too big for me. They gave me a helmet, a CCM Bucky that had like a visor, and it was just like bobbling on my head, and I like couldn't, like sweating, and I had dreadlocks. So like all the stuff I put in my dreadlocks, I was like dripping down my face, and like all the the spray and everything my mom put in, and then my helmet was bobbling everywhere. I remember I got hit, and my helmet goes flying off my head into the ice, and then I'm just keep playing. The puck was loose. It was my first shift, and then I was like, "Shit, where's no one's around?" I was like, "I had a breakaway." I'm like, "I'm going in. I'm gonna go and score." I don't hear the whistle blow. Nothing. Went in, sniped. First shift. Like pretty much these days it would have been a concussion for sure. Because like after that, I was like seeing 2 or 3. I wasn't nice, and I had to go. I had to leave the game halfway through after that because I was dizzy. Probably had a conky for sure. So that was my first shift. I remember that, and with these boys, and it was awesome. It was looking back on that, it was interesting. But these days, you'd have protocol. You have to go like you're done. I know even most 14-year-olds can do that these days, but
Different times, as we said, but pretty
yeah, different times. Yeah,
pretty memorable. I'm sure that was a
it
good feeling for you.
was
Um,
interesting.
so you end up getting drafted to Belleville in the OHL. And before we get to Belleville, one of the things I wanted to ask you, so you had been playing tier two junior, as you said, started at 14. You ended up playing a couple years there before going to eventually going to the OHL. But I had wondered, was there ever a thought in your head about and the NCAA route, because you had some
Yep.
success in the major junior or in the tier two junior, sorry?
Oh, that's a good question. And there was, but I just hated school. And I think everyone has a different avenue, obviously a different door to go in. My focus was to play in the NHL. And I remember when I come to the practice, going to the dressing room and looking, in my stall, I have envelopes. Usually you get envelopes in your stall between 14 and 16 when I was playing tier two in Kingston. You get I got a letter from Princeton, Bowling Green, Harvard, Michigan, and like all these cool and like great, well-known schools, Bowling Green. But I was like, hey, where's the letters from like, Austria Generals, Peterbilt Pete's? Like I want to play Ontario hockey. Like, it was just like I grew up watching the Frontenacs as you did the Peterbilt Pete's and Eric Lindros and all these cool players. I wanted to play in the show. And I hated high school. I hated school. I didn't want to be there. I mean, I was 14 playing tier two. I have to be there till almost 17, 18, I think. But looking back on that, why not? I could have stayed a little longer. I mean, could have stayed at home. But I had my mindset, and my parents didn't, I guess, influence me either. It's all about parenting and what they think was best for their kid. I don't think they realized I was a scholar at that time. I just wasn't into. I couldn't sit down long enough to do homework. I just didn't see myself in that kind of life as a going to university. So at the time, but looking back on that, that's not a bad idea. I wish now I would definitely go to school, but at the time is OHL only. But
It's easy to say that. I think
yeah,
it's,
oh
you can always play the what if game. And
yeah,
like you, just kind of my experience too was growing up in Peterborough. Then I moved to Burlington, but it was still, I remember not getting drafted to the OHL and I thought I was done hockey because you're so focused on that. That's what you're surrounded about in Ontario. Like there wasn't so
yeah,
much emphasis on NCAA. I only knew about it because of like my best friend's dad going. So like,
mm-hmm.
especially when you were playing too, I think it was all about the OHL. And as you said, like lots
Yeah,
of guys like Eric Lindros had played there and then gone to the NHL. And
mm-hmm.
evidently you end up going to Belleville. And I mean, your first year, you guys end up going to the Mem Cup. I was there in Ottawa
Yeah.
for
It's awesome. Really?
for those
That's
games. I
awesome.
remember
Yeah.
this has nothing to do with you, but I remember the final game. It was like 7-6 in overtime or something for Ottawa. They beat
Tech. Yeah,
Calgary. Yeah. But
yeah, yeah.
I
That's
mean, let's
awesome.
let's just talk about that. Like that must have been a like cool experience for you. First year in the league, and you guys end up going all the way in the Mem Cup.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool that team we had. I mean, that's where I really learned a lot under Lou Crawford, Mark Crawford's brother. Mark Crawford, obviously, longtime NHL coach. Lou Crawford was a hard nosed, like old school, old fashioned coach, and very scary. But we had a scary roster. Ryan Reddy was like he's from Peterborough. And I remember his red beard, and this guy didn't have to say much. He was a lumberjack, if we say back home. So we had him as our leader, our captain, Justin Papano, Jonathan Chichu, Branko Radivojevic. Yeah, we had a lot of good hockey players on our team and good leaders. So being a young guy, it was me, Chris Newberry, and Mike Renzi at the time, I believe, my line mates, and we were all 16. And we thought going to the Mem Cup that year was we didn't realize how special it was till maybe the next 2 years after that. It was like wasn't so easy to get there, But wow, what a moment!
Great place to have it too in Ottawa, like obviously good city and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
And you
Yeah.
had like, so you obviously end up playing 4 years in Belleville, and I'd say every year, you took a step forward, both probably in role
Mm-hmm.
and then also with points. One thing I will say is I remember like your guys' rink. I remember going to games as a Pete's fan, and I remember
Yeah.
that bullhead on the wall and think and thinking it was so
Yeah.
cool when you guys scored because like the
Yeah,
light the eyes would light up and the smoke would come out. Like
it's awesome. Intimidating, eh?
yeah, like
No.
it's like you said though,
Yeah,
like that reminds me of like what junior was back then. Like, this is like
yeah,
this is men playing this sport, and like that the bull thing
yeah,
even went into it too. Like, you get to the next level, this is what it's about. Like you get more benefits, more cool features in the ice rinks and stuff. Peterborough was obviously famous for their square corners. So
yeah. It's still there, isn't it? Is it
oh
still
yeah.
kind of there? Still
Yeah.
there, but
Yeah,
still like,
they
yeah. Sorry.
renovated it, but like the
Yeah,
corners are like they're not completely square now, but like they're not real
they
corners. So
exactly. They rounded it. They rounded it a little bit, but they kept it the character, a little bit of charm
yeah,
there,
yeah. Chris
the
Chris
person.
Pronger on Spin Chicklets talked about that. He's like, he loved that rink for the 2 years because it just was a defenseman's
Oh,
dream.
yeah, he'd kill guys in that drink, right?
Yeah. But
Um, yeah, that rink. That's right. So also, to elaborate on that, as you said, like the rink had a lot of charisma and Belleville. So you said the bull blowed smoke out of the nose and the eyes turned red. I had actually like a Belleville bull tattoo, and but I overdid went over it with that kind of symbol. And then they have in the playoffs a hex. A hex was like over the goalie net, big hex flag. So it was like over the 67s or the Pete's goaltender, just like a bad luck thing, right? You know what I mean? During the playoffs. So then you had then the ice surface. I mean, it was Olympic size. It was a
hmm
European ice rink. I mean, 100 by 200. So I had a lot of fun on that. Um, but yeah, I hated going to Peterborough Pete's like playing against. They were at the time like that's what size was everything, right? You had big BJ Ketchison and big players. Like I had to like, oh my god, I don't want to go to Peterborough tonight. It's just what I can't wait to get back to Belleville. But yeah, like as you said, every rink had a character. Now everything's a cookie cutout, and it's like business now. So
that's what I definitely miss about those junior rinks. But I will say that I honestly believe like every time Peterborough would go to Belleville, they would lose, and like every time Belleville would come to us, like Peterborough would win because you just were able to
yeah,
use like your own rink, like the
yeah.
advantages, and you yourself, like the Olympic ice probably benefited you because you were so
Oh yeah,
fast and
crazy. I loved it. Like, um, they put me out in the PK at home games, and then my ice time was definitely elevated in the home games, and then in the away games it wasn't. Not that I couldn't play on the small rink. I mean, I scored like probably even out my goals, especially in my last 2 years of junior on the road. But I think obviously they used me a lot, and that's why they drafted me to use my speed on the big ice.
good GM. So
Yep.
after your 4 years there, I think I know the answer to this, but so when you're done in the OHL, you obviously have your school package. So you have the choice. You can go
Mhm.
CIS or you can go on a pro. You evidently sign a pro contract, end up in Grand Rapids in the AHL. Was there ever any thought to, hey, maybe if I do my school first, then go to pro, or was it still like you said, like I want to make the NHL, so I'm going to do everything possible to do that?
You know what? I'm very stubborn, and I really have a really like when I have my mind on something, and it's always been that way since I was like in diapers. My parents would tell me. So I want it, and even when they've told me, hey, you should try this, go to school or do this, that, they kind of just decided to be the kind of parents like let him decide. And at the end of the day, it's his future. So when I came out of my last year, I my fourth year overage year, I had I have to go back a little bit, just a little bit. So when I finished up my last year of overage, and I led the Ontario, I finished second in the CHL in scoring, and then so first in OHL, and then I had nothing actually. I didn't have no offers to NHL camps, which is really unusual, especially for these days, because when you're signing a free agent now, you're signing big money coming, especially if you have a scoring championship. But I was like still somehow naive or something too, right? So obviously, I finally got an offer probably 2020 or 2002, around like a month before NHL camp started. Like my agent Don Meehan was like, "Hey, I got an offer for you to go to Detroit." So I'm like, "Oh," I was thinking about being an architect, an engineer, and I've always been into like designing, and I've always been into like the arts and the graphics and all that kind of stuff. But engineering, I always wanted to like I was into building things. But so I was thinking a little bit of this too. Um, but I was like, you know what? I was like, screw it. I'm gonna go for it. And I was like, they won the cup the year before against Carolina, so they were full. They had Brett Hall, they had Fedorov, Datsuk, Draper, Hasek. I don't know. They had an all-star Hall of Fame lineup. So I took it. I took my risk, took my chances because I was in my own little world, that NHL dream. And I was young. I was 20 years old. I was just like, I'm going for it. I mean, I never had this chance again. And I'm going to go for it. And I know I believe myself. If I did what I did this past season, I'm going to go and try to go to camp and show the best I can.
To be quite honest, I'm sure there's many people listening and me myself. If I'm faced with that decision at 21 years old, do I go CIS or do I go to Red Wings camp? How do you not? Because if you end up
Yeah.
going to school
Yeah.
and you'll get your degree, which is great and benefits you in
Mm-hmm.
the long run, but if you don't get another chance, you could always be like, what if? Like, what if I did well? And
Mm-hmm.
evidently for you, you end up going there, and
Mm-hmm.
within a year and a half of signing that deal, you're playing NHL games, which is your dream.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's right. Yeah.
one thing I wanted to ask you about is I'm sure it was a big adjustment that first year pro, which it is for most people, but I wanted to ask you, did you do anything different between year one and year two? Because obviously there's a big jump for you
Yeah.
where you end up,
Oh yeah.
putting up 50 points in the AHL and you end up getting NHL games the next year.
That's true. That was a pretty big jump. I don't know what I did different. Looking back on it, I guess I just put some extra hours in the summer of 2003. Um, just between that, like they didn't have the development they do now, obviously. Like it was getting there, but still not quite there yet. The Red Wings gave me a program to take home with me after my first year in the A. I signed a 3-year entry level. My first year was NHL, AHL, East Coast League, and then my second year turned into a two-way. But I looked at I just looked my first camp. I just like okay, I went there and I saw who I was with, and I saw the other draft picks, and I just kind of studied that. Looked like that someone's like okay, Yuri Hudler. I mean, he signed already 1 million or something like that. Thomas Kopecky. These are the guys. Nicholas Cronwall. Like those are the guys I had to kind of that was my draft or not my draft, but the
Your signing
prospects.
class, yeah.
My signing class exactly. Um, so I mean, at the time, I was like, I mean, I would look at Yuri Hudler, for example. I'm like, seriously, like, I mean, he's a good hockey player. I mean, like, no doubt it, but he wasn't a good skater. He wasn't. He was my size and this and that. So I had to kind of look at these guys who I compare who I can like kind of give myself a chance against. But we were also different positions too. So, but I went into the summer, worked on my first year in the AHL. I had maybe 3 goals and I don't know, not much ice time or anything like that. Just kind of learning year. Kenny Holland told me, and then Jen Neal. Ken Holland's with Edmonton now, and Jim Neal's with Dallas, the GMs. They told me right away they liked me and they believe in me. And Dave Lewis, also the coach, said that, you know what, go have a good summer, work out, keep working on yourself, and we want you to be uh, coming in and ready to fight for a roster spot. So, uh, anyways, yeah, I went and worked hard this summer, and I kept doing my power skating, and I never stopped working on my skating. That's the thing. Even though I was always blessed with speed and skating ability, I always worked on my legs, and I've always worked on my core, and I was doing stuff that people are doing now back then, with all this like resistance training and ropes and all that stuff, climbing, natural body movements. I was doing this stuff a long time ago with my father in the early 90s. So as a young boy, and I do that with my son now. So I credit all of my training to my and to my health and everything to get this chance to get better.
I think too, like, and we'll get to your training methods and all that later because you are very well known for that, always being in shape. Obviously, I saw it too in Krimichel. Funny story there. But I also think you that first year of playing, AHL East Coast probably
Yep.
opened your eyes and was like, hey, this is what
Yeah.
I need
Yeah.
to do so that the
Yeah.
next year when you came back, it wasn't a surprise. Like you knew already, like, this is
That's
what I
true.
need to do to have success. This is how I stay, a top guy in
Yep.
the depth chart. But let's talk about the call up, man. Like just take us through it, where you were, and obviously that feeling.
The call up. So in Toronto, was it Toronto or okay? No, the first game was in Detroit, Joe Louis Arena, and I was on the bus with the AHL club, the Grand Rapids Griffins. We were coming from the Chicago Wolves away game back to Grand Rapids late in the evening. And my coach at the time, Mike Dan, not Mike Dan, Mike Dan, what's his name again? He's coaching Michigan State. Okay, I will get to that later. He called me the front of the bus and told me, he's like, I thought I was in shit for turning the puck over too many times that game, but it was like more like, hey, I was like, you're going to go up tomorrow, okay, and here's your information. You have to go be at the rink at Joe Louis Arena by 4:30 for the meeting and everything. You're getting your first game tomorrow. It was like so kind of like, I was like, what? Was this so real? Like it's like I'm going to play AHL, I'm going to AHL tomorrow. And other guys congratulated me in the bus and they're like, you worked hard, good job, a lot of support, good job, all that kind of stuff. And I remember the drive to Joe Louis Arena the next day. Got my equipment from the Van Andel Arena where the Griffins play, the home rink, and took my Ford Focus or wherever I was driving to the Joe Louis Arena and then pull up and then they were driving like SUVs. Like it was crazy. Like I don't know. Like looking back on that, it was like pretty nerve wracking, man, really. But I was excited, of course.
Yeah, like as you said, you got to live your dream, a lot of
Yep.
childhood dreams, which is great. I will say this, you might not have been a stud for the Detroit Red Wings, but you were a stud in NHL 2004 for the Cleveland Cobras expansion team. Me and my buddy, I'm not kidding.
Okay.
He had like one of those big old fashioned like 72-inch like square TVs in his basement, and we were big
Yeah.
gamers when we grew up, and we did an expansion draft, and we
Yeah.
made the Cleveland Cobras, and you were one of the guys that we drafted. I just
Yeah.
remember it so
Sick.
much, man. Like it's crazy. Like it
That's
might it
that's
might not
pretty
mean
cool.
anything to you, but I had to throw
No,
that in
that of
there.
course it does. That's awesome. NHL 220 04?
Yeah, oh 04,
NHL.
man.
Yeah. Fuck great,
On the
man.
old on the older
Oh, so can I swear on
Xbox.
here?
Yeah, yeah, no worries.
Okay.
But yeah. So evidently you end up playing 4 years of North American Pro. Your last year,
Mhm.
again, another great year in province, and you get a couple games in the show. And I'm curious.
Mhm.
So after this, you're clearly able to put points up in the AHL. What
Mhm.
was the decision for you to say, "Hey, I'm going to go give Europe a try," and you end up signing with Adler Mannheim in the DEL?
Yeah, it was I was 20 2005, 2006. There was a couple of lockouts in my time. There was like two lockouts, I think. I think there's one, yeah, one lockout. It went from like 04 to 06, something like this. And the one year, the one lockout, 05, 06, I believe. Or no, 04, 05, sorry. 2004,
Hmm.
2005, there was a lockout year. So that year would have been the year I would have had probably a chance with Detroit to start off with in the roster. Um, but that got swiped away a little bit because the prospects come up the next year and then you kind of just get lost in the shuffle. And I had a groin injury too, actually at the time, like from the All Star game. So there's so much luck that plays a part of it, you know. And um, I believe like to do anything in life, it's not just hockey. It's not just uh, sports. It's like anything. Sometimes timing is everything, and when you have that, some players maybe shouldn't have been in the NHL as long as they should have, and some players shouldn't have not. You know, it's just sometimes you have the skill, you have the people that support you, or sorry, your support system, timing, and then your skill, and then your work ethic. I mean, all those things that just happen to fall in the right place, you're laughing, and you getting in a good season in the NHL or DL or Rush or whatever. Your first season, second season, you're consistent, and then you sign a big ticket, and then you're in the club. And that's how it really goes. And it's the same thing maybe with other things too. But I decided for me, I wasn't a high draft pick, and I had to work. I worked my ass off for everything at the time. But I felt like okay, I'm getting older already, and after my year, the lockout year killed a lot of prospects in my prospect class, and I'm like shit. Okay, so 2005 to 6, I had a pretty good season in Providence, led them in scoring. And then Adler Mannheim, Marcus Cool, and Danny Hop show up at Providence Dunkin' Donuts Center. Like these Germans, they come. They're down at the outside the rink or like waiting for me in the parking lot. I'm like someone one of the players like, yeah, there's Germans out there want to talk to you. I'm like, what? I'm like, I mean, shocked me talking about the Germans want to talk to me. He's like, guys, they're telling me they want to come see them. I'm like, okay, it's a joke because they our team played a lot of pranks, you know. So at the time, right? I go out and then there's like this is Marcus Cool and anyway, so anyhow, but they Adler Mannheim at the time was well ahead of everybody in the DL. They're well ahead, still well ahead um, of getting their players to come play for them in Mannheim. I didn't know where Mannheim was. I had no idea even German had hockey, even a pro team. I had no idea. I've heard good things about hockey there, but I didn't know. I didn't have enough knowledge. So I got a call from this Greg Poss. He was the head coach, and started telling me, he's like, "We'll fly you over, show you the SCP arena, and you can stay for a week or whatever. I mean, do tests and all that." I'm like, I don't know, you know, kind of gotta. I had a good season. I want to sign with Boston another 2 years, and but gave it some thought that hockey in Europe, I want to travel to and enjoy the game a little differently. And it gets stressful. AHL, NHL, wanting like it gets really stressful, man. Up and down. In my situation, I didn't feel ever safe. I could always take my skill and my skating take me so far, but then you have to rely on the rest, and I didn't really feel like that, so decided to go to Mannheim.
That is a big factor, I feel like, with a lot of players is, the grind of going up and down, the uncertainty of
Oh, it's
like
crazy.
yourself doing well in
Yeah.
the AHL, but not getting, maybe the best chance in NHL, like, only 7 games, like I wouldn't say is a great chance. Like it wasn't enough time to maybe show your ability or you for to adjust.
It,
So
yeah, that's the thing. And smaller for a smaller player. Also, Martin St. Louis was at that time at his peak, and Gianta, and those kind of guys. And I was even bigger than those guys, actually, to be honest. I was maybe about average size, you know, for a smaller forward. But now it's like, I mean, you're looking at Goudreau and Kane and all these guys, Bedard. Like, I mean, he's tiny, but the game's changed, and that's it. And again, with the timing thing, a lot of players now that are my size and skating ability are getting signing these contracts. They're there, they're supported, and the game's changed. It's more fun to watch, more skill, more speed. But back then, it was like, he still put up these points, but and I was just like, that's it. You know, I don't have
mhm.
time. I want to go to Europe and I want to travel. I want to still make some kind of, I invested so much time in my career. My parents have, I want something out of it. So that's right. You know, I decided to do that.
And what a start you had, I will say. I believe
Yeah.
your time in Germany, you end up first 5 years over in Europe, you play in the DL, and your first 3 years, you are back
Yeah.
to back to back
Yeah.
champion.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Mannheim, obviously, that's a good way to start off your career. And then you go to Berlin and end up winning 2 championships there. Now, I personally know and used to train with Rob Zepp. So
Sepper, yeah, yeah.
Zepper, so he was telling me just,
One of my
I
good
think
friends.
he was there 7 years and they won 5 championships. So like they were
Yeah.
obviously the
Yeah.
the
Sepper.
peak at that time. But like, how was that experience for you? Like, you're winning championship, next year championship. Like, you're thinking like,
Mm.
oh man,
Yeah.
like this is
Yeah.
like, I'm a
So
god in
easy.
Germany almost. You know what I mean? Like that must have been cool
Yeah.
experiences though, just being a champion for those 3 years straight.
Well, here's the I put it this way. I think my goal was when I came over to Germany my first season with Adler, it was a tough start. I think for me, of course, culture wise and language and everything. But my agent told me at the time, like, go have a good season and we'll come back to NHL. We'll just go take a break. And he put that kind of idea in my head too. Um, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, I kind of want to stay, maybe pursue Switzerland or whatever and move around. But he was like, no, 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 go, lead him in scoring and have win a championship and refresh your name, come back and they'll get you a contract, blah, 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 blah. Right. So I had that in my head and I was like, all right, new goals, something to go into in the season. So, I had a good start on the ice and everything, or I should say, the big ice every day, and the way we played with Greg Poss in 2006, 2007 was very exhausting. So it was like a lot of torpedoes fly the zone. I like that because you're kind of, it's offense. But then he always wanted the guys to come back to the house. So you have to back check on that big ice. It was playing in the AHL and everything was ice smaller and a little different. But so getting those lungs at the beginning was crazy. But man, like, I wasn't thinking when I won the first championship, I was like, okay, great. I'm going to go back to sign back with Boston. They have my rights still. And, but that window closed, it was like already 25, 26, too late. And I wasn't a draft pick. So, I went to Berlin next year, won again, and under Don Jackson, and then Don Jackson again, the second year in Berlin. And, but I wasn't thinking like, yeah, Meister, like I got 3 Meisters and I'm a god or anything. I was just thinking, okay, this is fun and it's big for Germany, but this is not really what I dream of doing in my career is winning a German championship. We dream of winning Stanley Cups. That's how we were raised and playing the NHL, and that's it. But as time goes on, you realize that you've accomplished a lot when you get older, and you realize that it was not so easy that you've accomplished that. And also, I was put on good teams. I mean, my first year we were stacked. Berlin was always been strong, but I've been lucky, and again with the timing, to be put on a good teams and be part of that. Good guys, good forehand. Everybody wanted to win and everything like that. So the timing with that what was I think a big key thing.
You brought up a great point there, and I think it's important to reiterate it is obviously you dreamed of winning Stanley Cups, and for most people that dream never comes true. So
Yep.
for you to look back and be like, you know what, like I won 3 Meisters in Germany in a row, like that's a pretty tremendous feat. Like it's almost like saying I had a very successful career, which obviously you did. You played for 20 years professionally, but some people have the hard time saying that because they go, yeah, I played in a lot of cool countries, I won some championships, but I never won the Stanley Cup, which I think is like for me that's just like it's like false
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
the percentage of people who win Stanley Cups is very low. And someone like
Mhm.
yourself, you've obviously had a very successful career. Another thing I want to bring up is you played in some cool tournaments too while you're over in Germany. You played in the Spangler Cup. You were able to
Mhm.
represent Team Canada.
Mhm.
Um, how was it being able to put the Canadian jersey on to represent your country internationally?
Um, honestly, like, also pretty cool. Um, Again, like it's just like okay, it's not the Olympics, it's not this, it's not like World Championships, but it's still your country. And Deutschland Cup's become a very, very historic, and Spangler Cup's always been historic. But I mean, how many hockey players can put a Canadian jersey on. Actually, can be chosen. I mean, it's such a. I mean, line them up. We probably have 2 or 3 pro like teams that could play in the World Championships, kind of thing. So it was nice, man. I mean, I still have the jersey and everything at home, and it's a couple pictures and everything. But it was a good experience. But you know what was the best thing about it is like coming together with other Canadians in Europe, and it's a family thing. They make it Team Canada, Canada Hockey. They make it a family event where they bring in Tim Hortons from Canada, uh, and like the Canadian flag is everywhere in the hotel. It's just like a Canadian atmosphere and families and kids everywhere. It's like relaxed and fun and compared to other teams in those tournaments, they're like ready to like go to war. I think the Canadians are more like, okay, we go out and have some beers after the game, and, get ready for the next one. But that's what it was like. It was just like a vacation tournament, I called it, but it was fun.
I would have put on some LBs definitely with if there was Timbits
Oh
over
yeah,
there coming over.
there were Timbits. They brought
Oh,
Timbits too,
oh,
but
geez,
I
I would
had
have
those.
been
They were so unreal.
I would have been a beach ball in the net. Um, but just because of time and stuff, like you end up having that long career, as I said, you played a lot in a lot of different countries. You were to experience German culture, Finland, Austria, England, Czechoslovakia, even Belarus, which I'm sure
Yep.
was eye opening at times. But I want to get to the point. So you end up coming back to Germany for a third time. You end up coming to the Del 2 in Bayreuth. And this is actually when we played against each other.
Yeah.
So you were in Bayreuth in the Del 2 in 16, 17, I believe. And that was
Half the
when
year.
half the year, yeah. And like me, I was there half the year in Heilbronn. And
That's right. Okay, now I remember. No, more and more. Yeah, yeah, I remember that.
I have to be honest, I think you scored on me. We won the game. I think I played against you was the end of the when you played everybody 4 times. We played you the fourth time in Bayreuth. We lost 4-0, and I just remember you on the power play. I'm pretty sure you sniped me, so there's a 1-0 you on that one. But and then we ended up meeting each other later down the road, and this is kind of where we kind of became more acquainted with each other. Obviously, we didn't speak
Yep.
when we were playing each other, but during one of the COVID seasons, I was working in Kermachow as the goalie coach, and you were trying to get your passport at the time, and you came to skate with us a bit. Your black Nike
That's
skates,
right.
I'll never forget those. And
Graphs,
or
graphs,
bow or
graphs,
graphs, yeah, sorry.
graphs. Yeah, yeah. I had
Um,
the black tuck, the black tuck. Yeah,
yeah. So
just trying to bring it back.
yeah, that's unfortunately
Maybe,
didn't get to it, but
no, 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 no. I thought I realized they're slow. Maybe look slower. I
but this
think.
but this brings me to the other side. So I remember the coach there at the time was Mario Riche, and he was like, like whether this works out or not,
Oh yeah.
I think this would be a good opportunity to have him as our strength coach because he's someone that obviously has taken great care of his body over the years, has always been in shape. And I remember you after some of these skates, you were taking some of the young guys out into like the forest and you guys were like pushing tires and like chucking logs
Yeah.
around as they would see on your Robinson Athletics page as well. But where would you say your passion or your because you said you want to be like you were thinking about architect when you were
Yep.
coming out of the OHL, but where did your love for
Yep.
fitness and kind of just your drive to get into that side of it as like an athletic trainer come from?
I've always had that in the back of my mind. I love always my father and my mother were track and field athletes, and they were there like for their high school, where like their the my dad was like the man of the year, the athlete of the year for his year, and my mom was also. So genetics play a big part actually, I think, with my physique and everything and my training method and all that. But I always loved um sports, and I did not mind training for them also. Like, I mean, it just went hand in hand. I've always had a lot of energy, so I thank my parents for that, because I think a gene makeup is a big thing on your parents and how they bring you up, and of course the gene chrome is huge. I studied that in my school and university, and how the genes play a part to a certain point. But yeah, definitely, fitness has always been something I've enjoyed doing, and or health and wellness. Yeah. And architect is, I mean, I also feel it's important for people to have two, three different things that's different if they're for the passion, light and shaft. I like art. I paint also, and I did one here for my friend, and I did something this to take my mind off of hockey because I can't just always focus on hockey. My parents are like, you have to have a skill in um, arts, sports, and then other stuff with educational, like it could be like reading or mathematics. I don't know, something like this, but not definitely not a math guy. But always have two things to go to, not just focusing on one thing. And I've always had that in my back. I've always had other things. I never just made hockey everything. I always had something other interests. And I always tell kids that, like, look, use hockey as a tool mostly to get education or to get money to pay for education or whatever. Use it as a tool. That's don't think about always playing NHL or the end. Like I was a dummy with that, but I realized over time, like, you know what? I had this. I just was focused on NHL so much, but I was always having this when I had too much stress. I go paint, that kind of thing, or do fitness, do the fucking 100 push-ups or something. I don't know, but that always helped me stay balanced as a human being. At the end of the day, we're human beings, and we need to have a balance of our lives. So,
Oh, that's true. That's true
yeah,
words from your parents. And,
yeah, yeah,
I've had a couple of guests bring that up too, where, kids today think that they need to focus 24/7 on hockey, which is totally not true. Like you see
no,
a lot of the athletes that are either multi-sports or like yourself have other
yep,
passions, whether it's something in
yeah,
art or play an
exactly.
instrument, whatever it is. Like it allows them to
Yeah.
kind of mentally and both physically get away from the game and recharge.
Yep, and that's what I do with my kids. And I'll put my kid in everything. Like I already have him. He's just turned 3. He's luckily he loves sports, so it's easy to influence him. But between the ages of now and 14 years old, they do everything. They whatever they want to do. You don't push them too much, but if they like doing it, you keep supporting it. If they don't, then you don't. But you don't like just keep a kid just in one thing. It's not fair to the kid, and
Mm-hmm.
it kind of messes with their psychologic, and they feel like they don't have any say in what they want to do for their life. And you let the kid decide. You give them choices, and that's with everything, the sports and everything like that. So that's the way I was raised, and whether it's worked out or not, that's the way I kind of have for my kids and to do fitness, sports, of different shit. So
It's the smart move. I honestly think
yeah.
that. When so obviously you've transitioned into working with Leipzig here in hockey over the past couple years. How has that transition been? And also, when did you start Robinson Athletics?
Um, Good question. 2020, I guess you could say, during the Corona, just when the Corona started, because I finished. I was playing in as a player coach in Brown Laga in the Regionale Liga, and we were just about to start playoffs, and the Corona hit, and then there was nothing. Everything's wiped out. Like no more hockey, nothing. And I was like, okay, what to do now? But I was just like, I want to stay in shape, but I can't go to the gym because that's closed because of Corona. Can't do this because of Corona. You can't do this Corona. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna turn this into a positive. And I wanted to help people because it's right now a health thing. We have to stay somehow fit in shape. Everybody should, and everybody's being locked out of the fitness studios. It's ridiculous. And I'm not going to be denied. I don't care. I'm going to go to a park. I'm going to buy equipment first. Buy a truck. Actually, I bought a truck, a cheap for like €1,000, a Mercedes Benz 2000 year or something like that. It's still sitting in the there, no TIFF, but I still drive it. Shh, no, but but I got a truck, an old truck, and bought some stuff from Amazon, threw it in the truck, went to parks. I trained myself in the park, like some like lang handling, quarter handling, and medicine balls, and I just did my training there. And then people were walking their dogs and everything like that. They see that, of course, and in Germany that people always have one eye there. You know what I mean? So even the Polizei would come and tell me like not too much stuff, you're not allowed, and there's always, of course, control in Germany. But I just did my thing. And then people kind of asked me, can I train with you? And I was like, of course, more the merrier. The more people to train with me, the better. We can do like a stationary stuff and in the park, and then even in some corners of the Natur, they say in Germany, the nature. And I just started that, and I started getting people coming more and more. I go 2, 3 times a week in Halle and then in Leipzig, and bring all my stuff there, assault bikes, and set up. It looked kind of really nice, good atmosphere, and everyone needed to do something, get out of the flat. You can't be scared in the flat. Like, it was a ridiculous time to a certain point, but that's a whole different argument. I don't want to get into that. The politics it's a mess, so we leave that behind. But with my Gewerbe, my um my business, I started 2020, Robbins Athletics training day, and training people in the parks. And then after that, I was like, you know what? I also have other sides with sports experience and in my education. I'm going to build this up and do something special here. And I have a lot to try to share with. I'm going to be staying here in Germany, so I'm also make something out of it.
Robinson_athletics on Instagram if you guys want to give him a follow. A lot of great
Yeah,
videos on there. And like you said, making the most out of a tough time, which was COVID, and you were doing outdoor workouts and
yeah.
allowing people to both stay in shape, but also kind of free their mind and free themselves from the kind of jail cell of their apartment house back then, because that
Oh,
was obviously
that was crazy,
a
scary.
tough time. Um,
Yeah.
couple more for you here because I know you got to go, but so future plans for you is the plan to continue doing Robinson Athletics and also working kind of as an athletic trainer in hockey, or do you
Mhm.
ever plans to get into coaching one day? Like, how do you see that playing out?
Um, Something that's been bouncing around in my head off and on. Of course, in Germany, in most countries, you got to get a shine license from the DEB. I have my B license that I had to do, and my C license, and it was interesting steps to getting some knowledge and obviously some kind of Zeugnis. And coaching for me, am I that personality? As I ask myself, and I'm watching other coaches, and I've been here in Leipzig now for 3 years actually under the Ice Fighters. Sven Gerker, great man, and very very. He's been really good for me here, and I've learned a lot from him already. And Frank Fischhorder is now here, so like a place like Leipzig is kind of like my teaching ground for I think Sven Gerke is a good guy to learn from a little bit. So, and Fischholder now that had 20 years with Mannheim Adler with the Nachwuchs. He had Stutzler, um, Draisaitl, and Slider. I mean, the guy's like a super Nachwuchs coach, and now he's also did some pro too in Nuremberg and everything now here. So I'm looking at these coaches, and I look at the coaches I've had. Okay, Don Jackson, Harry Kreis in Germany. Um, I've had Greg Poss. He hasn't coached here in a while, but I'm looking at, okay, how if I was a coach, how would I do it? And how would I manage the players and everything? And it's not easy. I don't think it's an easy position, and not just that, you got to move around like a player. You're definitely replaceable any day, and for now, I think I have my own kind of independence and on what I want to do first. And maybe one day coaching for me is something, but if the opportunity is there. But at the moment, I like to kind of focus on my power skating training for players development, skills development, and then of course athletic training. And oh, there's a package. But I think at the moment I focus on that. But coaching, I'm not going to shut the door on that. But I think for me, if I was a coach, it would be more player coach. I'm a player coach. I'm a player. I'm a people's person. I'm not so. I'm not kind of a dictator kind of type of person. I like to kind of keep it like everyone together and more emotional guy. And that's how I would do it, I guess. I mean, everyone has their style, but it's like I never was really good with coaches that were kind of watchtower coach. I never adapted those kind of coaches. And I'll tell you something before we get off is these days, if you're not an open door coach, if you're not a player's coach, it's going to be tough because this generation is definitely a little more softer, and you have to attend to each player one on one to get the best of each player. and you can't forget one player. You have to have a door open. And back then, the door was shut. Like, I mean, it was tough being a player. And for me, I had too many problems. And I'm just like, you know what? I wouldn't do it that way. There's just no way. And you have to cater to the players because you can have X's and O's. You can have tactics, strategy, all the best, like F3, F1, this, F this. But if the players don't like you, okay, if they don't like you as a person, because hockey players are personable and they're smart people and emotional guys, then they don't want to play for you. And you want to be someone you like to be that a player wants to play for you and likes you. So I think I would definitely be, and I think most coaches coming up have to think this way these days for sure.
No, it is a different time, as you said, in terms of like coaching. And I think the open door policy is definitely more beneficial. The hard school or old school hard ass kind
Yeah.
of thing is,
Mike Babcock. Yeah. I mean, he's come back in the NHL now. He's won cups, but they kicked him out at the NHL because he was treating players like animals. Like you can't, I mean, in the day, hockey players, they're human beings and athletes are human beings. Yes, they get a lot of money at certain levels. But in the day, the money's there, but then it's still human. They're not robots. So if your coach is treating a player like shit, it's going to come back on you. Your career is not going to be long as a coach these days at all. And I'm glad that it switched that way because it's better for people and humanity actually. And I've seen players after games almost want to kill himself. Like they're just like, I'm so done. I'm scared to come to the rink next day. I turn the puck over the blue line. Like seriously, there's a war going on or something like this, or like, come on, it's ridiculous. That you can't, as a coach, make hockey the end all everything, because of you're afraid to get fired yourself. You got to make it enjoyable and fun, and maybe you get to really care about the people. You got to care about the players.
No, I agree. Making it fun and making it a good environment makes the guys want to
Yeah,
come to work
that's
every
right.
day, if you want to
You know
call it
that.
work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, Babcock's got a new chance now, so hopefully
yeah. We'll see. That's gonna
he's
be
learned.
interesting. It's gonna be
Um,
interesting, right?
Last one for you here.
Yeah, yeah.
What's one piece of advice or multiple pieces of advice you would give your younger self if you were talking to Nathan Robinson at 16, 17 years old? And that can also be directed towards the younger listeners listening. So, from everything you've been through in your life, what are one or multiple things of advice you would give them?
Oh man, you got to throw that on me right now.
I always end it this way. That's the question I always end
Well,
on.
that's a good. Yeah, I know. I heard that's in your podcast. That's true. And I was like trying to still answer that before. What would I give myself advice from now till when I was younger?
Yeah, if you're talking to your younger self, so if you're talking to
Yeah. Okay.
or the younger listeners who are 16, 17 years old,
Ah,
have everything you've gone through in life, both,
yep.
in sports and away from the rink, like what advice would you give to these guys listening who maybe want to have a successful career, 20 years pro like yourself?
Always have a backup plan. Don't take it too serious and enjoy the moment. There's three things maybe. Make sure you have other things you like to do, and think that between 17 and 20 is you're not old, man. You still have a whole life ahead of you, even after 25, even after 30 to 35. After 35 to 40 gets a little trickier, but you might have kids or family. Even before that, even 30, but between my young self, 14 to 21, I was on a mission. So I was like NHL, hockey. Once in a while, and if I didn't have hockey, focusing on other things like drawing or something, but have always a couple of things going on, hobbies, and I would tell myself that don't take life too serious. And at the end of the day, you do good by people, and everything comes back good to you. So that's what I tell myself.
It's good advice. I think
Yeah.
that's a good way to end this. Well, man, I appreciate you doing this.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for having me, man. It's
Yeah,
pretty funny.
no,
Like I told you, it was like asking you, like, like, yeah, come on. It's like a therapy, really. I did the one podcast and I really didn't think I would. Yeah, I don't know how I do it, but like adapt to it, and I'm pretty, private guy with this stuff. But it's nice because I've known you from pretty much a little bit. And I played against you, and people I know that know you, and that you're a pretty good person, good guy, and I see you're doing really well with this podcast. I want to be part of it. So thanks for having me, man. It's awesome. Appreciate it, your time.
Yeah, I appreciate the kind words, and obviously going down memory lane is
Yeah.
always good. I love talking to people about their stories. Yeah, listeners, as I said, give this guy a follow. Go check out some of his videos. If you're in the area or you feel like working on your skating, make the effort to go see this guy. Work on your athletic ability as well, because this guy will get you in shape. Trust me,
0 to 60. 0 to 60. It's
0 to
called. That's the power
60,
skating.
0 to
Power
60 power
skating
skating.
on Instagram. But who's going to interview you though? I want to know who's interviewing you.
I
You interview
know.
yourself?
One day I'll bring myself on when I'm desperate and have no guests. We'll get to that one.
Okay, if I ever have time to start a podcast, and you'll be my first guy.
Perfect, man. I'll come on anytime. But yeah, thanks again. And again, for those listening, until next week, juice and ciao.